evening, everyone, and welcome to Virtual WIFT, episode 3. This is the third episode in a series of 4, which WIFT Australia have put together, along with our wonderful speaker, Steph Power. Tonight, myself, Claudia Keech, who's the WIFT board member, along with Megan as my co-host, who's one of the board members of WIFT and has pretty much put on everything I've seen for the last 4 years, along with Katrina, who's also joining us on this session tonight. So tonight is titled Action. And Action is possibly a good title for today because we've all been listening to our Prime Minister and our various premiers across Australia start to give us some room to move, even if it's a coffee with a friend. And it just means there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I think I'm feeling really brave about the fact that we picked this title for tonight. And I'm looking forward to what Steph's going to say, and more importantly, the questions that we'd love to hear from you. So Virtual WIFT was created as a direct response to the coronavirus, the fact that it had all of us suddenly stuck at home. We may have family and friends, but we may also just be home alone with our jobs. You know, the rug has been pulled from under us, and WIFT felt there was a need to look after all of the filmmakers across Australia, especially members of WIFT and new members to be. So here we are tonight, and we're here with Steph Power, who we picked for our first 4 sessions. I should mention before going on to those of you who have not been here before, that the first 2 sessions, first was on Home Alone, which faced the obvious, how do we get over that mental hurdle and move forward? The second was called Social Forecasting, and that's about really shifting gears and moving forward, seeing what's coming up and where we're going to go. And tonight we're going to jump further into that. But those first 2 episodes are featured in bullet point and also by footage on the WIFT Australia site and the WIFT Facebook. So feel free to look at that if you have. So without further ado, we're going to move to action, and I want to introduce our wonderful speaker, Steph. Now, I always refer to my notes when I talk about Steph because she's got too many qualifications for me to remember. So she's a 27-year veteran of our industry. She's a graduate from WAPA in the same timeline as Hugh Jackman, and we thank Hugh for endorsing Steph for this particular series because it's made them extremely successful, and then Steph just carries it on, and that's why I can see so many people have come back for the 3rd time, so welcome back. Steph also then decided to go on and study being a director, and after that she noticed something that we're probably all quite aware of but can't do much about, and that is that the mental health in our industry is not always brilliant. So Steph decided to do something about that. She went back and studied and became, or has, a master's in counselling, a postgraduate in psychotherapies. She's a member of the Wellness Committee for MEAA, and Steph in her normal life works on and off sets with crew and cast, helping counsel. It could be a difficult script. Steph will tell you more about her work in those areas, but it's not just for the cast with the difficult script. The crew sometimes have problems, and she also counsels one-on-one. Any of us in the industry who might just be going through a difficult patch, a patch of unemployment, or, you know, you're working with someone difficult. There's always a need for mental health help in our industry. And on that note, I think it's time for me to throw to Stephanie. Okay.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Hello. This is the 3rd session. And tonight, as Claudia said, we're moving on. The first session, as Claudia said, was really on that self-care and looking at this solitude we were finding ourselves in the self-isolation, setting up our workspaces and being able to do that self-care before we had the chance to stop and start planning where were we going from there. And then the second episode was really looking at what was going to be involved in the new era in COVID-19 as far as productions are concerned. What I've done is try to work in a very integrated way. So at the moment, I'm working very heavily with doing advisory work for productions on what that new COVID-19 production setting would look like. There's certainly lots of discussion at the moment about that worldwide. There's very few very integrated or detailed plans out there, and I'm in the process of trying to finalise mine, which currently sits at about a 25-page document, and it's covering all areas of both physical and psychological safety. Because if you're going to put a plan in for production and move forward, it's really got to be very holistic, because it is a pandemic. And in a pandemic, people do suffer from those responses of anxiety and stress, and that can come out in certain behavioural responses on set. And so particularly with performers who are already in a vulnerable position, and they're also in their work being emotionally exposed. So it's very important to make sure that the performers are given that mental health support. So tonight, what I'm really wanting to do is have a discussion about what knowledge that I've gained from certainly talking to people in the industry, and what knowledge you have yourself that you're able to share with people. Tonight is about action. It is about looking and comparing the big picture, small picture, which really is the difference between where independent production houses sit compared to the main house productions, who's actually in a better position. And I'd really like to open the discussion to filmmakers as to where they're viewing and what hurdles they're actually coming across at the moment, and being able to answer your questions on that. Then we're looking at market platforms, and I think most people have done their research on what's possible at the moment and where things are heading, and again, it would be great to open discussion on that. Virtual teams, I'm sure, well, we're all working at the moment with that. I know myself, I certainly am. Lots of Zoom, lots of interactive kind of sessions and teamwork. But the thing about self-isolation is it's a highly creative time. It's a highly creative time because there's something about having that solitude that really enacts our creative processes. So I'm very, very much looking forward to the work, and particularly with the writers, that's going to come out from this time that we've been stuck home in COVID-19. The other thing is really looking at that script and looking where that's going to go with productions right through to the completion. What adjustments are going to be having to be done? I've had a huge discussion today with a first assistant director friend of mine who works on big productions, and looking over those kind of logistical changes that are going to occur right from script right through to completion. And it is a very long list of logistical changes that are going to be involved. But it was very interesting. At one point he said, well, I don't know how this is going to be possible. And I said to him, well, we managed to get to the moon. If we can get to the moon, we can solve some of the problems that are associated with the production problems at the moment. So it is about being very adaptive. It is about making sure that the risk aversions are definitely put in place because of the issues with insurance and, liabilities and things like that in this particular time. And it is really looking at what I've mentioned before, what it is we know, what it is we don't know, and what are the problems that we're supposed to be trying to overcome at this point, at this time, and create a very, very safe workplace for everybody. I'd like to just address right now the kind of idea of having that the psychological safe workplace. It has to be very integrated with the physical kind of safety that's going to be on set. It's really not enough to just put in all those kind of measures without making sure that the crews and the cast are really informed about what they're going to expect before they are repatriated onto a COVID-19 set. Once everybody is really familiar with what they're going to be experiencing and what they're going to expect and what the logistics are, the anxiety level is going to actually start reducing. So for me, it's really extremely important that we make sure that production welfare is a priority, and that the production welfare coordinator, I've now made a new role called the PWC, I call it, but you can call it whatever you want, but production welfare coordinator works in with the medical officer, the safety officer, and the set nurse to make sure that there is very much an integration of physical and psychological safety for the crew and for the cast. And once I finish my guidelines, I'm very happy to discuss those and share those with you. But they really are important to make sure that those those measures are put in place to lower all the risk aversions that are going to be very much key points in discussion with all producers.
As to what Steph's putting together now will be made available to those of you who need them. They won't be posted up onto the WIFT website, but they will be available when she's completed them. Is that right, Steph?
Yes, what I've kind of, I've thought of the different things, but because it is obviously my intellectual property, I'm very happy to share it, because for me it's about really helping people in their production planning and in their departmental planning. And I'm very happy for anyone to give me their input as well and email me, and that's stephkpower@gmail.com is my email address if you'd like to contact me. And my webpage is stephpower.com if you'd like to kind of have a look and see and learn a little bit more about me. But I'm definitely wanting to contribute my knowledge. And then if anyone needs me to kind of implement that for them on a production, I'm here. I just want to make it clear that I would sit on the same budget line as the safety officer and nurse as far as where you put me on the line of the budget. And I kind of also am saying at the moment that I know that there's a role of intimacy coordinator and intimacy director with sexual intimacy, but that kind of thing for me is crossed out now. It's completely crossed out. I'm not recommending anybody uses anyone like that. A, because intimacy is now completely out the window and not changed. But B, they don't have mental health training, and I think that really you need a much higher level of someone who can work with performers and have actually a mental health training is really important. So once I've got that out, I'd love everybody to refer to it. If they're doing a production or anything, you can just say, use me in the reference of where you got that information from. That'd be great.